I'm glad I can laugh at myself over this, but I catch myself a lot of times when I realize it, when I start to give an example of how I experience what I'm learning by the relationships that we have with everybody else, right? And because the information is so tied to everything, like a library, a tree network in a universe. Next thing you know, because it's all connected, it's like I can't sound compress and then get out and transfer it into somebody else's mind that much energy, right? And Aaron and I have a lot of fun with this. It's like, slow down. Let's do this one book at a time instead of releasing the whole library at once. All right, the Big Bang. So I had reminded myself that I was talking about some examples of altered records. Now, and this is true when you traumatize somebody and you create an amnesic barrier. So in other words, the recording of the original soul identity, when that amnesic barrier kicks in as a result of a fracture, right? Now that went dark because it's not experiencing living light anymore. Now that is a part of that record. It's now an altered record. That's unaltered because that's an alternate personality that is no longer experiencing itself being whole, being one with all creation. That's a parallel. Now you can get into the QI, right? Quantum intelligence, artificial intelligence versus God consciousness, creative intelligence. Okay. That's how records get altered. Not the least of which, I didn't finish about the End of the Road Gang, which was the name of a group of teenagers in high school in the mid-1960s, where we were all sort of groupies, but there was no groupthink in this group, okay? And psychedelics, tryptamines, have a beautiful way to make sure that doesn't happen when you're experiencing the other through plant medicine, like magic mushrooms, peyote, mescaline, and the real stuff, right? Mama stuff. The trinary stuff, Trinity, right? Neil. It's your fault, Neil. But I wanted to give a few examples of how records get altered, or, if you will, how the corruption in the system by those that participate in it. Remember the old saying? It goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. All right, because I could share a list that goes a mile long of people that I know that have never done a day in jail simply because of who their parents are, that are associated with those bloodline families, right? And so I'll give you a couple of pretty unbelievable stories, but it's not funny, okay? Because you see, as a result, how the record-keeping activities in a fallen spiritual system, with just fracture after fracture after fracture, altar after altar after altar, because I'm a monopole polarity integrator. So I got to pull all these fractures in, right? So, and now you feel being one, see? One with all creation that we're gifting energy to. So it was back in the mid-'60s, there used to be a place that we used to hang out in, which was called Coco's Restaurant in Santa Ana, California. And on Fridays, there must have been at least 75 or 80 of us that all used to go out into that parking lot. And this was like a family restaurant, right? And so it usually was around 9:30, maybe close to 10, because see, you know what a minor is, right? Now we're back to rule-based functions. The rule of the AI says that if you're not of what's called majority, even though you can go back to the 1840s and see that men and women were getting married at 12 and 13 years of age, building a log cabin, raising and farming animals, and doing trade with other people. I remember when Patty Broussard said, yeah, they were trying to control the population, which is the breeding count. And I'm not going to get into how the math works and the physics work. on a falling around with all of that, but they certainly were trying to control the population and know how to do that. That's an entirely different subject. But in this particular case, I had a friend of mine that I was going to high school with, and his sister was a friend of mine. So I knew their father, whose name happened to be Rickles. Okay, Rickles. So if you went back to the Orange County, California judicial system, the primary seat of the county for Orange County, California was Santa Ana, California. And there is a big black cube there, by the way. Okay, so you can see why I probably ended up there. But Bob Rickles, okay, who was a friend of mine, on this particular night, here comes the Santa Ana Police Department. I think there was and they came in from every direction. Okay, so they were going to grab us, right? And then take us into the police station, and then get our parents and say, you got to come down and pick up your child. That's the way it worked back then, right? And so when they came in, everybody just scattered, right? Well, Mr. Rickles, Bob Rickles, decided that when these cops jumped out of their vehicle, what do you think he did? Now, some of these folks grabbed their helmets, shotguns, stole stuff out of these police cars, right? Basically to fuck with them. And so Bob jumped in one of these cruisers and took off and went hauling ass down 17th Street, going from Santa Ana to the next town, doing, I don't know the speeds that he got up to, but they finally managed to grab him. But guess who he is? His dad is the presiding Superior Court judge in Orange County. Whoops. Okay. And so you understand. So this is when you get into the CUSIP number stuff. This is when you get into the birth certificate. This is actually when you can get into targeting, and the AI will target you based on the CUSIP number that's tied to your biometric scanning ID to put you in a cage and then draw voltage off your soul account. Okay. And so, as it turned out, Bob Rickles walked out of that, but he, in order to keep it cool, because of the manner in which the geometric sound and light patterns of his son, this is how it was back then. Remember, these are Westgate keepers, so we know who the gatekeepers are. We call them gatekeepers, Westgate keepers, right? These would be the pawns on the chessboard that are protecting the bigger vampires, which are your Nazi corporations, right? Corporate types, which are fiction types. Now we're back into character maps. Now we're back to characters in the play, right? In the video game, in Star Wars videos. Star Wars, war theaters, right? Simulating war games. Okay, so that's coming to an end, and I know that. This is a cosmic level clearing. I'm a cosmic level spirit, so I experience that in my own heart and soul. So I know that. You may not know that. You may not experience that, but I know that. And so there is an example of an altered record. Okay? And so another one would be another friend of mine that I grew up with that I used to surf with. As a matter of fact, he was the one who kept sending me cards, photographs of, hey, I'm living in a treehouse over on the island of Kauai. And that now you see the significance of the island of Kauai with some of the information with Eshaya's story, Eshaya, on the Voyager material, when she talks about interdimensional communication center, and I talked about a big pipe that I opened up through my heart. It just expanded, right? And nearly physically knocked me off my feet. So that particular island was where I experienced Mama when I was there last December. Not this last December, the December before that. What would that have been? 2021. I was there, and as soon as I landed on the airplane and planted my feet, and I could feel the essence, and boy, I know you. And so that's one of the reasons. That's my home base. Kauai is my home base. That's my base station. Okay, I call that a goddess's flower shop. So on top of Mount Waialeale, all the ethers, right? 700. I can't remember. I don't know what the average rainfall is up there anymore. But I've hiked a fur piece up, which would be on the west side, which is over where I used to live in Hyena Point, right? Hiking up the trails and going up where all the waterfalls and where all the, it's paradise, absolute paradise. That island. I cry every time I think about that place. But anyway, so these how records get altered. So this friend of mine, Bill, who got there at a Taylor camp before I got there, was sending me postcards saying, "Hey, listen, you need to come over here, man. You wouldn't believe it. Coconuts and pie, mango fruit, star fruit, surfing every day. Da 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 da. You won't believe it's all free. You're not dependent on these other corporate folks for food or money or the rest of it, man. Mama's Earth is giving us everything we need, and we're living like Robinson, Swiss Family Robinson, or Paleo Man." Wow, really? So when I got there was a lot of earthy types, deeply spiritual, connected to Mama Earth on that island. That is a very powerful island. Okay? And so Bill was partaking in a lot of things that Mr. Rickles was doing. Okay? And as it turned out, Bill was wanted. So that's how Bill ended up over in the Hawaiian Islands. And the reason for that is his dad was a dentist. And his dad happened to be the president of the American Dental Association back then during the mid-1960s. And his name was Mr. Godshall, right? Who happened to be hooked up with another big developer in the Hawaiian Islands called Dillingham. Go look up the Dillinghams. See? So these are what we call connections, right? Yeah, core connections. And so Bill managed to be able to squeeze out of that one because it just so happened that one of his dad's clients, which means somebody that was going to have his teeth drilled out, happened to be a federal judge named Judge Burns. You can go look to see where he went up the ladder from being a federal district court judge. I believe he went up to being a federal appeals court judge. Okay, so you see how a federal appeals court judge has got an enormous amount of power, right, through the Illuminati bloodline families to take care of their own, see? And so this is how the corruption works, see? They're pathological liars, okay? And so therefore they're going to do everything they can to protect what it is that they have acquired, right, as a result of being energetic vampires. So they got no love to give you, right? So now I'm experiencing through these folks that I grew up with who their parents are. And you can see how other children that aren't as dependent on which side, you're running, the material side, the spirit side, right? Now we're back into the mass and the density, right? Remember, losing mass, gaining speed, gaining mass, losing speed, ascending, descending, breathing in and out. And so I grew up with a lot of these folks because this was North Tustin, California. So most of the kids that I grew up with all had fathers who were either presidents for corporations, judges, very famous dentists or doctors that were all hooked up. That's a network. They're all networked. A groupthink, hive mind, AI network. Okay? So those are all your Mr. Smiths. Okay? So you're navigating through the field of Mr. Smiths. Right? Order followers. Right? And so you realize that you have a relationship in code transfers, right, of how that works, which is energy transfer and maintaining your shield, right? So you're not going to lose your identity, or what we call assimilation. And now you're into assimilation of asimilar geometric sound and light patterns. Now you're beginning to mimic what they are by virtue of having a relationship with those codes that represent those frequencies and those vibrations. Because now you don't remember who you are. Now we're back to guilt by associations. Associations, now we're into disassociations, dissociative identity disorders. Oh, so I get it. The disorder is the identity disorder. Oh, so that's how they were sucking souls up into the, like a Borg hive mind. They forgot their soul consciousness that was running the software no longer remembers the soul that it once was that was running that software. Now it's running different software, so it doesn't remember who it once was. That's right. That's why it took special forces teams that were highly trained in dealing with an AI wargamer, hive mind. And now you get into all the stuff with Avatar, Minority Report, Rise of the Machines, and all the rest of it, and how you build planetary motherboards, how you build a template to begin with of communications, universal communications, which is the language of DNA, which is the language of music, which is the language of math, building circuits, right? And so it's like they're out of tune, okay? That's why the waves are distorted. And so distortion is disassociating. Right? You know, I'm repelled from that. Oh, man, you know. Harmony. Harmonizing with the math codes. You know. And so anyway, you know, you can see how this plays out, particularly over time. Because if I just was going to try and quantify it, and I tried doing that. Remember I was talking about checking all the boxes of every crime that I'm experiencing that represents corruption, or if you will, a crime against, in other words, they're doing harm, right? What I do to you, I do to me, right? The golden rule, right? Turbulent waters, you know, you're running your boat, you know, your water worlds, my water worlds. If your water worlds and my water worlds are in harmony and balance with each other, and we're experiencing the balance between the magnets, right, between the poles, hey, our waves are getting along with each other. Our radio sets are tuned into each other. Yeah. See? It's really that simple. Tuners, self-tuning radio sets. And so I grew up with, you know, in these places, particularly in Southern California, of realizing how corrupt the situation was. It was just like what happened to me at Rockwell International. Okay? When they decided that they don't want a whistleblower in there, right? They don't want somebody that's coming to the president of the company and to say, hey, you know, these folks are contaminating and poisoning the groundwater. You know, they're supplying drinking water for these folks, for 12 million people. He obviously shows that he cares about these people. That's why he's here, right? Get rid of this guy, okay? We're not interested in that. As a matter of fact, that's not who we are. We don't give a shit about what we put in the water, right? Because we make money off these people as a result of that. How do you think Big Pharma and all their doctors' offices and their hospitals make all that money? We're in the business of killing these people off because we make a fortune off that. Now we're back to burning the candle at both ends, right? So this is why I shared this with my clan mother. Do you realize how many folks would have to be removed if you wanted to quantify accountability? Because once you accept the contract, which is the money, right? Because now it's implied, because that's the money that they're using, right? And that money is a result of adrenochrome harvesting. So that means that the money's cursed, okay? By virtue of how that money came to be. Okay. And so all you'd have to do is go to, and I worked for so many of these folks. I worked at a plant where there was, what was it, Mama, 30 some odd thousand, I think, people, day shift. I think there was 20 some odd thousand working second shift, and around 13,000 people that worked graveyard shift over the period that I was there. And you could make a case, because the evidence is there, okay, that all these folks were actually deriving a paycheck, right? Now we're back to the association. Remember, if you go back to the Nuremberg trials, okay, and folks were being prosecuted for having an association because their energy was being used on behalf of a corporation, and that corporation was in the business of killing off those with souls on behalf of the AI. And then you could say, well, I wasn't aware of it. Remember that old saying when I grew up as a child? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now we're back to the law of one, right? Do no harm. Did you realize that working for this corporation, you're actually allowing your energy to be used as a battery slave? So that in the next 20 years, you're going to experience the result in the use of your energy, what you now experience, that becomes a crime against yourself by what they're going to do to you, that you help them accomplish. So I was using my own energy in order to kill my own self off. That's right. Because that's what they do. See, if nobody was ever using their batteries going to work for these corporations, they would not have been able to have the time through the AI, because it was in a race against time, to roll out everything that they've rolled out through DARPA for at least the last 7 years that I've been aware of it. Because it's easy to know these things, because it's predictable, easily predictable. Because the geometric sound and light patterns are predictable. And how do you know that? Because they're operating inside of a time matrix. So you're actually measuring the change of the direction by experiencing a higher speed vibration that allows them to have a higher state of awareness. Now they're going to say, I no longer want to be held captive to a system that doesn't serve us. They make a different decision. So the more batteries, the more souls and spirits that have a higher state of awareness in which they're changing the time in which they're experiencing what they are that is different from the last, to experience higher vibration, which relates to love and service to others, we would not have experienced what we have for the last 20 years. So this is why in the 1960s, I thought that we were able to increase the speed that was being connected through lines of communication to raise the vibration on the planet, right, sufficiently enough that we would reach that threshold point. Harmonic convergence, if you will, to the point where when you understand how the ping pong works between the more they do against us, right, actually hurts them, which means they're accelerating their speed of separation from us, getting sucked down a hole because there isn't anything left of them anyway with a soul. And then those that do have souls that are maintaining the higher spiral speed, which is zero, which is God consciousness source. So now you realize the difference in the torque speed differential between that timeline, those timelines that represent implosion, and being connected to one that goes on forever. See? So it's one of the reasons why I've known since I was a child that what we're doing up here is a result of who we all are in order to fix this. The level of success that we're having and the way that it can be sort of known by what we experience over time, space, vectors, the speed at which positive change is taking place by virtue of what we're doing to solve the problem. And the speed at which we experience here in a terminal here what we're doing right? And so you can see that had we not been successful, the outcome, a negative outcome, would have already happened. So we averted. Okay, that's good news. That's why I've said for many years now, relax. We were successful, you know. Otherwise, I would have not got a phone call when I'm getting ready to go have a 5-inch hole repaired in my right. It was right here, actually. One morning when they're sticking needles in me to go into surgery, right, and I get a phone call and it's pretty noisy, thanking. I give it back to everybody that's here because that's why we're here. Thanking me for the work that I did while I was here. Obviously, I'm not the only one, right? And so that thanks or acknowledgement would not have come if that being was not aware of the success that we have achieved working together in which to make that happen. I would not have got that call. And that call came in, when was it, Mama, 2019, when I had my operation? I think it was in April 2019. I think it was 2019. I don't remember. But this was at a time when I was dumping libraries like crazy, and I almost zipped out of here. And I thought, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. You want to see this through, see this through, see this through, right? And so anyway, that's the good news. You know, northeast, west, and south. Yeah, 4 arrows on the compass, right? Spirit, emotions, physical, mental. Anyway, have a beautiful day. I love you all. Be good to yourselves.